From a drugstore parking lot in the dead of night, 911 dispatch hears the blood-curdling screams. They will soon identify a face with a name on the other end.
The only eyewitness to what happens is Kandi Hall.
Kandi and her husband Rob and their 2 teenage daughters had just moved from California to Idaho, where they settled in Meridian, a quiet town at the foot of the majestic Rockies.
Rob and Kandi Hall had been married for more than 15 years, and by a lot of accounts from their friends, were happy.
Rob was the IT specialist for the local sheriff. Kandi was a paralegal, but the 40-year-old wife and mother was dealing with some career struggles.
She had recently lost a job at another law firm, and so she was looking for somewhere to work.
Enter Emmett Corrigan, her soon-to-be boss. The rising legal star was boyishly handsome, cocky, and ambitious. The 30-year-old had just opened his own law practice. Not only did Emmett have a thriving career, he had a beautiful wife, Ashley.
We were dating like 2 months. We dated really fast, and we both just kind of knew it was what we wanted.
They were the picture of this squeaky clean, all-American family with 4 kids and 1 on the way. The future looked bright. Kandi, the paralegal, was thrilled to be part of a vibrant new firm. But just as her professional life was coming together, her personal life was falling apart.
She was having problems in her own marriage. Kandi, at times, had told people that Rob had been abusive toward her, that Rob had had an affair of his own.
Reeling from the news of her husband's infidelity, Kandi threw herself into the job, logging long hours at work with Emmett. It wasn't long before Kandi and Emmett struck up a torrid affair, exchanging racy emails, spicy text messages, and indulging in late-night office trysts.
They were having sex, apparently sometimes in the office. There were a number of coworkers who said they knew what was going on, and clients also knew in some cases.
I started thinking, there's got to be another woman or something. Something doesn't feel right. Like every time I'm trying to get close to him in ways that were just natural before, it became like a fight. And the kids were starting to say, does he live here anymore? He's always at work.
Despite her gut feelings, she tried to convince herself she was just being paranoid.
To be honest, I'd always be like, she's like 40, he just turned 30. Ashley, no, there's no way. I mean, you're 28 years old.
But then one night, everything changed.
Emmett came and said, hey, I'm gonna run to Walgreens real quick. I got this cold, I'm gonna go and just get some medicine. And I knew he was gonna be gone a long time.
But just a few miles away, Kandi, Emmett's paralegal, tells her husband she's going to run a quick errand too. Soon, a secretive drugstore meetup would change 4 people's lives forever.
So around 9 o'clock, Kandi, her car pulls into Walgreens, and then Emmett's truck pulls into Walgreens, and Kandi says she got in Emmett's truck, and then they went to a nearby subdivision and they had sex in the truck.
Consumed by lust, Kandi and Emmett think no one knows their secret. But by pure chance, Kandi's daughter pulls into that Walgreens parking lot and sees her mom's car empty. Thinking it's strange, she calls her dad, Robert Hall.
So Rob called Kandi's phone. Kandi answered the phone, and Emmett took the phone out of her hands. Kandi says that Emmett started to get threatening to Rob on the phone.
Rob heads over to Walgreens, hell-bent on finding his wife. Store surveillance videos show Rob parking his pickup truck. He goes through the front door and roams the aisles looking for Kandi. Rob leaves the store, reparks on the other side of Kandi's car, his door just out of range of those store surveillance cameras. And it's exactly what happens off camera that leads to an epic tragedy. In this parking spot next to Kandi's car, Robert Hall waits for his wife Kandi and her lover and boss, Emmett Corrigan. When the couple pulls up and sees Rob, they have no idea he has a gun in his pocket and revenge on his mind.
Kandi says at some point Rob provoked Emmett by saying, why don't you go home to your wife? You have 5 kids at home. and that set Emmett off. He pushed off of his truck and came at Rob. Kandi says she turned to leave and never saw what happened after that.
Rob pulls out a gun and shoots.
Emmett was shot in the chest and in the head, and Rob had a gunshot wound, a graze wound to his head. She saw Rob start to get up, and she said she actually grabbed the gun, and she said she threw it like a bowling ball across the parking lot.
A panicked Kandi calls 911. It's too late. Emmett doesn't make it. Across town, Emmett's wife Ashley gets the worst double news imaginable.
They said there's been 2 shots of a gun. There's been an accident, an affair. I remember looking around the room and everything just felt dizzy. It just didn't make sense, and it was really a mix of emotions. Wondering, like, why wasn't I enough? I begged him to stay home and fight for me, but instead he died fighting for someone else's wife.
And at the hospital, Rob Hall is still alive, being treated for a head wound. Cops question him about the shooting, but he claims not to remember exactly what happened.
And the only eyewitness is Kandi Hall.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
She tells detectives she went to Walgreens to pick up a prescription where she met up with Emmett. She claims they're just friends and she needed to vent about her marital troubles. But investigators already have naughty emails, texts, and co-worker statements.
Are you and Emmett involved in a romantic relationship?
No.
Have you ever been romantic with Emmett?
No.
Okay, now let's say sexual. Have you been sexual with Emmett?
No.
Once confronted with the evidence, Kandi finally tells cops what they didn't see on surveillance cameras.
And I hear pop, pop, and then pop. And that's all I heard. And I turn around, and both of them are laying on the ground. Emmett was kind of like on his, like this. And I didn't know what was going on. And I just see all this blood gushing down his rough face. So I went over and I covered. He had this wound on his top of his head not covered, and I'm calling 911.
Days after Emmett Corrigan is gunned down, Robert Hall is arrested. About a year later, he faced trial for second-degree murder.
These 2 families were forever changed by the actions of 3 adults.
In court, the defense argued Rob Hall was consumed with jealousy over his wife's affair and acted in self-defense after Emmett instigated an altercation. And the only potential eyewitness isn't helpful at all.
She would tell them what they wanted to hear, basically.
Well, the judge said that he's never had somebody change their story so many times.
Strangely, Kandi and Robert were back together, having rekindled their failing marriage after the shooting. After both sides rest their cases, the moment Ashley's waited for. Guilty of second-degree murder.
I had really felt like I was the victim in this case, you know. I mean, most people hearing it would think that. But all I could see was these 2 mothers. A mother whose son was now going to be in jail for a long time, and a mother whose son had been killed. And it tore me apart, realizing that there's other people hurting, probably just as much as me.
While Rob did apologize to Ashley and her children in court, she had this to say back. Let me tell you about my babies pounding on a casket. Their hero's body lying inside, screaming for him to wake up, and screaming at me because I was telling them that we couldn't open the box. Hall was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Ashley didn't let it ruin her life. She's happily remarried and has 2 daughters with her new husband. As painful as this episode was for her family, she says they've all learned from it.
We talk about his good qualities, but we also talk about the choices that he made and how our choices do determine our destiny.